Well, hey, what's up, Colliders? It's Daniel here again. And hey, it's over. And the Clone Wars have. The last season, the final season of the animated show, The Clone Wars, has just finished its run on Disney Plus. So let's talk about it. So The Clone Wars, if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, you're probably familiar with the show, you're aware of it. If you're more of a kind of a casual fan, or maybe you're not a fan, maybe you've heard of it, or maybe you haven't heard of it. It's kind of an interesting show. It's gone through several different lives. It started off as in theaters. They broadcast the first couple episodes, turned those into a movie years ago. Kind of had a run, flew under the radar for a lot of people. Then as it got moved to a different network. Stop. There was a lot of fans that kind of brought it back and kind of had a second life. Or I think on Netflix, a lot of people discovered it for the first time, became real popular again. And then Star Wars was sold to Disney. The show was canceled. Again, a lot of fans kind of asking for this to finish the show. So they did. They came back with one final season, 8 episodes on the Disney Plus streaming platform. Kind of to end the story as the creators, Dave Filoni and his team at Lucasfilm, as they intended it to. And again, it's good. I want to talk about the final season, these last 8 episodes, but just as far as the whole show as a whole, it's good Star Wars if you haven't seen it. And again, one of the things that makes this unique is George Lucas, before he sold Disney, this is kind of the last Star Wars-y thing that he had his hand on. He was very involved in the initial seasons of this show. He wasn't involved directly in the final season. Now that he's sold Star Wars, but he was involved. So it's as kind of like a old school Star Wars fan, this is the last link, back to the creator, George, and his vision for Star Wars. And again, it's good. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe you guys can let me know if you were one of the people that. They released the first couple episodes of this show. They kind of melded it together to make a movie, and it just wasn't good. They're not good episodes. They don't play like a cinematic movie. They play like parts of a weekly show, and the movie just wasn't good. I saw it with my brother. We're both big Star Wars fans. We're not big prequel fans, but we thought we'd check it out, and we left the theater just being like, that was lame. Like that was not interested in that. So I never checked out the show after that. Turned me off of the show. It wasn't until years later when I had my own kids, just thought we'd check it out, see what some of the hype was about. And when you get into it, there's some really good Star Wars stories. There's good stories in general, but especially if you're someone that kind of loves the Star Wars franchise and the Force and all that, there's some really good stuff in this show. And again, it gets better as they go, as they kind of fine tune and perfect things. And this final season really is sort of this is like the harvest time for them. They've put in the work. They've kind of worked out some of the kinks. The animations got better. The storytelling's got better. And this final season is really good. One thing to keep in mind with the show is that it falls, if you're familiar or even casually with the Star Wars lore, the show falls right in kind of the middle of episode 2 and episode 3. The episode 2 ends with the Clone Wars starting. Episode 3 kind of begins with the Clone Wars ending. So the show just falls into that middle ground of the actual war, and it doesn't flow as much of like a linear. Every episode connects it, especially in the later. From about season 3 on, they do it more in arcs. So there'll be 4 episodes on these characters in this mission. That's sort of one story. Then they'll start a new one. And there's some general themes and overarching narratives that kind of go throughout the whole show, but it's primarily you're watching kind of mini movies broken up into different episodes, and that's the case with this final season. You have 4 episode arcs. I believe this is kind of 3 unique stories. The last 2 of these mini kind of movies tie in a little bit more. The first one's kind of an isolated thing. So again, it's in some ways it's hard to kind of talk about the whole thing, the story, because it's really a collection of different ones, kind of different mini stories, different narratives, different kind of themes that are coming out, rather than kind of like a movie with a sweeping kind of main narrative and theme. But kind of the heart of the show is the character of Ahsoka. And again, she was, when she started, she was a very controversial character. They introduced her as like a Padawan for Anakin, and it's always, you're always getting into some kind of dangerous, controversial area when you start kind of messing with the canon, or, obviously the movies make no mention of her. So, you're adding a big character, a big part of Anakin, his character arc that wasn't, original to the story. So she was, a lot of people hated on her. I was not impressed with her at first. But again, she's become a hugely popular Star Wars character. She really kind of grew up through the series, became less kind of annoying teenager, and this became a really good character. And in a lot of ways, she's kind of the heart that ties the whole show together. But she particularly ties this final season together. It completes kind of her arc. And the last two of these kind of mini arcs in the last season are directly just in her journey, in her, what she's going through. And I would say that probably the first arc is this good fun. It doesn't really tie in. It's just a fun adventure. The second arc it's okay. I think it's necessary for the story they were telling, but it wasn't as engaging. But these last 4 episodes are fantastic, and they are worth, even if you're not sure if you want to commit to watch the whole show. If you're at all kind of a Star Wars fan, I encourage you to check out these last 4 episodes. You might not pick up all of kind of the narrative, the arcs that's going on with Ahsoka, but it's definitely worth, and it, directly ties in to the events of the movies. And I think as far as the, kind of just some of the themes and what's going on in this, I won't get into, I know as Christians, sometimes the Force, the mystical side, is a discussion point, something we got to work through. And, we've talked about that on this channel, other places. I encourage you to check out the Collider chat I did with my brother. We talked about that. I believe in my Rise of Skywalker review, I talk about that as well. So I don't want to tread, those grounds again, how should Christians approach the Force. But I think there's some interesting, larger kind of themes and stuff going on that's worth worth taking note of. And a lot of the main, this final season, what brings it together is sort of Ahsoka's relationship and view of the Jedi. It's kind of a popular, in some ways, even in the main saga films, that's kind of like what The Last Jedi was going at, kind of Luke kind of becoming disillusioned with the Jedi. It's time for the Jedi to end. Maybe they weren't all that they meant to be. The prequels, that's a big kind of plot beat throughout all those movies is, the Jedi aren't the noble knights that they once were. They become, kind of careless or overconfident or blind, or now they're just fighting wars and they've kind of lost sight of who they are. And that's sort of the Ahsoka's journey through this final season is, before this season she kind of, I don't want to spoil any of the main story beats of this season, but she'd become disillusioned with the Jedi. She kind of walked away, and this show kind of shows her wrestling with that and trying to kind of rediscover who the Jedi were. And I think it's an interesting theme as Christians to kind of wrestle with. She begins kind of cynical about the Jedi, and they're just a bunch of fakes. They're not really who they should be. I just need to go off on my own. And kind of through her own journey realizes that actually, the Force and kind of what it means to be a Jedi isn't dependent on, the actual Jedis, or some of their fallings, or the imperfections and the flaws of the leaders and the Jedi Council. That there's sort of a deeper truth, kind of a deeper morality, nobility that goes beyond that. And that she had been so focused on just the people, and that she was let down by the people, kind of the Jedis, that she'd kind of thrown out the whole thing. And it's an interesting way to kind of end the series. And in some ways, it's a bit of a somber. If you know the movies, the Clone Wars don't end well for the good guys. So you kind of know the whole time where this show is leading. It's going to end in kind of a tragedy, but there is that kind of that sense of hope in there, that she's, the Ahsoka character kind of finds that hope again, that even though kind of the institutions are flawed and the people are flawed, that there is sort of goodness and kind of the light side of the Force that's worth holding on to. And again, I don't want to spoil it because there's some good moments, but especially the way the show ends is just a great scene, a great moment that as a Star Wars fan it's worth checking out, and kind of just seeing that from familiar themes and stories, this from a different perspective. Another thing I would say too, this in some ways I think people write off animated shows as they're just for kids. which is kind of ironic because if you listen to George Lucas talk, Star Wars: A New Hope was kind of made for kids. This is sort of a kid, young franchise that obviously adults can latch onto as well. So again, don't dismiss it because of that, but it is pretty mature, especially the last two arcs. The last arc in particular, it can get pretty mature. There's characters are dying. The bad guy, he's even like hacking off heads and limbs of these clone troopers. It's it's not played in like a graphic way, but just there is a heaviness and kind of a somberness to it. So again, I think an older kid can really get into it, and it's not going to turn them off or shouldn't turn you off. But it is, this isn't just a regular, this isn't Paw Patrol or something. It does get into some deeper themes, which I think makes it, that's what Star Wars is kind of about. That as a kid or as a grown up, you can all come and find something to it. So again, I enjoyed it. I'm a fan. I'm not huge obsessed with the series. I've seen all the episodes, but I thought it was just a good way to end the series. And in a lot of ways, it almost changes my perspective on the prequels. I'm not a big fan. I'm still not a big fan, but it kind of it gives a new kind of ironically it corrects some of the cartoonish, kiddie, kind of silly parts of the actual prequel movies, and kind of presents it in a more kind of serious, believable light. We're just going back to watch those movies, make you just see it in a bit of a different way. So again, if you're a Star Wars fan, I encourage you to check it out. If you're not, maybe check out those last 4 episodes. I don't know. It's hard for me to say if you'll enjoy the series or not. But again, try those episodes, and if you enjoy it, then you lucky you got a bunch of seasons to watch. They're all on Disney Plus right now for free. And again, hey, let me know what you guys think. Have you guys been following this series from the start? Have you guys just jumped in? Are you a big fan? Do you hate the prequels so much that you don't want to touch it? Maybe ready to give it a try. I'd love to kind of hear what your experience with this show is. I think a lot of people have different, they found it at different times. It means different things. I know I have a cousin who's, Ahsoka is her favorite character in all of Star Wars, TV or live action. So let me know kind of that. And again, if you haven't done so, I encourage you, subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of other Star Wars, related content, as well as just, apologetics and other movie reviews. So again, if you haven't done so, we'd love for you to do that. Don't forget to like this video, and I hope you will continue to collide with your world for Christ.